Welcome back to Those Astrology Girls. We're so excited to have you here with us today. If you haven't already checked out the episode on the big three, your sun, moon, and rising, highly recommend you go back and check that out. It's a great place to start, build a foundation for astrology. But don't worry, if you don't want to listen to that one, you can jump right into this one, and we're ready to explore the 12 zodiac signs. Now, this is a really important foundational piece of astrology. So we're going to dive into all 12 signs, sharing our unique perspectives, our experiences, and our insights so that you can get a solid understanding of each one. And think of this as like a get to know you of each sign. We'll go deeper into modes, elements, other layers of astrology in future episodes, but this one will set the stage for the understanding for you and get you to understand the essence of each sign. Now, full disclosure, this is going to be a juicy episode. It's definitely going to be a two-parter. So today we're going to cover the first 6 signs, and then in the second episode, which we'll totally link in the show notes, we'll cover the second 6. So whether you're brand new to astrology or you're a seasoned astrology girl, we hope our take will offer you something interesting about each one of these signs and really be fresh and inspiring. As you listen, tune into the signs that are definitely your sun, moon, and rising, but also think about anywhere else that you have concentrations of energy or other planetary aspects in your chart, if you know your chart that well. All right, let's dive in and get to know the zodiac together.
Yay! I'm so excited for this episode, Nicole, and I feel like we cannot start this episode without acknowledging how perfect this episode came together. Because beforehand, you and I were talking about like, okay, like who's going to talk about what sign? Like, you know, how should we lead into what sign? And it so perfectly like panned out where the signs that I was, you know, that I have the most energy in my chart, and the signs that like you have the most like energy in your chart and the most significant energy that we both feel are in our charts, it just so perfectly worked out in our favor for each sign. And I love that because I was like, wow, we're so different. And I just love how like different our energies are and how we can both bring just, yeah, really unique wisdom from our own personal charts into this conversation.
I was like, oh my gosh, the ones I was kind of nervous about leading, Keelie's like, I got this. Like, I love these signs. So I was like, perfect, chef's kiss. And we're going to tell you all about these amazing, amazing 12 signs. Now, 12 signs, you might be like, oh my God, that's a lot. I only care about mine. We're going to talk about that. But we're going to talk about them in order, specifically from the beginning, which, you know, a lot of people see the new year as being the beginning of things. Not in astrology. The new year begins with Aries season. And so we're going to go from Aries to Pisces. And there's a reason for this. Obviously, that is the natural order of the zodiac from, you know, Aries through Pisces, but they all build on each other, unlocking different qualities, aspects, archetypes that are only possible when you make your way through. And so it's a really cool way to explore this. And we know 12 is a lot, and that's why it's 2 episodes, but try to see little bits of yourself in each one of these signs.
So heading into today's episode, we want to encourage you to go ahead and pull your chart, run your chart, figure out what planets you have and what signs. And it's not as important to really know, you know, what the specific planet means in that sign. For now, it's just good knowing that you've got some energy, you've got some major aspects of yourself that are really embodying and flavored by the energy of these signs. So take a little note of what signs you've got planets in your own chart, and also reflect back on that sun, moon, and rising sign and really sit with the energies as we're talking about them today. There might be some energies that we dive into today that maybe you're like, well, I've got this sign and this doesn't really feel resonant with me. And first of all, I just want to say that's totally normal and that's totally okay. When I first found out I had Pisces in my chart, specifically my moon and my Venus, I was like, huh? Like, this does not resonate at all. It was something that I sat with for a really long time. And it's not that I closed myself off to, no, that's not me at all. But I just let myself think about, like, is there maybe an aspect of me here that like I've shut down, that I haven't given myself permission to be this sensitive, soft, spiritual, mystical, you know, Piscean part of me? Not that that's all that Pisces is, but just these few parts of myself that I was like, is that me? So just start to let yourself ask questions today as we're talking about these things. And again, you are your own authority. We're not here to tell you who you are. We are here to share the flavoring of each sign. And for you, you get to see how does that come to life? Because not everything we talk about in every sign is going to resonate, but there are going to be elements of that sign, aspects of that sign that you're like, oh yeah, this is who I came here to be. This is how this shows up in my life. And this is how I embody this energy out in the world as I'm living my purpose.
That's so well said. Thank you so much for bringing that up because I have seen so many charts and I've seen even my own where I go, what is that? Like, I don't, and it's all for us to embody and to figure out with time and see what really calls to us. And I think when we decided to incarnate on Earth, I believe we have a huge say on the planets and where the chart, ends up. And so when you listen to this, think of these lessons and qualities your soul was selecting at that time. And that can feel really deep. But I think about it, you think of babies, right? And they're like, people are like, oh, like the baby's going to be born this day. And it's like a week later. And it's like, I believe that soul was like picking and choosing, like, nope, I can't do this. Someone just told me like someone's having a baby in December. And I was like, yeah, like clearly that baby was picking like Pluto and Aquarius, like didn't want to come any sooner or later, different times. And so, think of that as your soul had a big hand in this. So even when you don't resonate, be like, why don't I resonate with this piece? And is there anything hiding?
Yeah, it's so interesting too, because it's like, yeah, we think about babies coming into this world and it's like, oh, this is the chart that they chose to have. And then it's like, this is the chart I chose to have. These are, from in our chart's so beautiful in that it highlights things that we came here to learn, ways that we came here to grow, signs, energies that we came here to learn about and grow within ourselves, and also signs that we came here to be super comfortable with and that came here to be our gifts and our strengths in this life. So really just kind of like attuning to some of these energies within ourselves and what's our relationship with them right now, and how can we grow and gain wisdom or even just embody the strengths that we have in those signs.
Should we dive right in? Should we start with Aries?
Let's do it.
Aries is the traditional first sign of the zodiac, and so we always begin with Aries, and I have an Aries moon, and so this is why I selected to connect with this one. And if you listen to our past episode, you know that sometimes Aries for me was like a bit distant. I was like, I don't know, like, am I this? Do I have these qualities? And yes, of course I do. But at first it was a bit of a shock. And so, think of Aries, the vibe of Aries is bold, super energetic, unapologetically passionate. Okay. Like they're like, watch out, here I come, like first out of the door. Like if you think, I just think of like kids in school, like they're like the first in line, they're like, gotta go, like I'll be there, I'll be first on the playground, like first on the playground, last back into the classroom type of vibe. Aries is like the child of the zodiac. It is like the young heart and soul, innocence, pure energy, just really vibrant. They love action. They thrive on excitement and challenges. And so when we think of the Aries vibe, I had an astrology teacher tell me this. She's like, okay, if we like landed on a random mountain in the middle of nowhere on a spaceship, Aries would be like darting out the door, like first up the mountain, look back and be like, who has my shoes? Like that always stuck with me. And I was like, oh yeah, that does feel like my moon's energy. Like I'm just like, let's go, think about the details later. And so when you think of Aries, think of that like bold warrior type archetype, but also passionate, courageous. Like the Aries role in this lifetime is to embrace courage. And if you think about children, like the youngest, like unreally conditioned people, they are really courageous. They do some wild stuff, right? And that can be really fun, but it can also be a bit, edgy. And so an Aries is like really just cool energy, if you ask me. So that's just kind of the vibe. And like they've got this really powerful energy that comes out of the gate. But if we think of like, okay, what's an Aries like in a relationship, right? And so when I think of Aries in relationships, I think of the person who walks up to someone and they're just like, hey, like, do you want to get coffee? Or like, hey, do you want to go on a date? Like there is no like waiting. Like they're just right in it. They're fiery. They're romantic. They love grand gestures. Like this person will probably bring you flowers right on the first date. Like does not think about like, is this weird? They're just like doing and following their heart. Aries people in relationships, like they want a spark. They need to feel something because they work on that energy, that like keeping a spark alive. While they're really big and energetic with their relationship aspects, I feel like, and how fast they commit and go into things, they do have a really solid heart of love under that. This is not just gestures and big things and like quick action. Like they are lovers, like they really are. And so, as much as an Aries would be like quick to take action, like I don't think that's an indication that they aren't really committed. It's just more of a, a speed type of thing about them. Honestly, like thinking about that, like when I see people in like couples who have like someone with Aries in their chart, I actually know a couple who the husband is an Aries and then the woman has Aries Venus. I'm like, oh, this makes so much sense for you guys. Like the way, that connects is just so beautiful. But I can totally see that husband is just being like, yeah, let's go on a date. Like, let's do this, and like her being like, okay, like whatever, let's do it. And like happily married all these years later. So, just clicking, just being good. Okay. What surprises people about Aries? This one always makes me laugh because I'm like, I have that Aries moon. And, as much as an Aries is a bold firecracker, right? You know, a passionate, brave, courageous person, they do have that soft, protective side. Like, you know, they're not going to just go crazy all the time, you know? But when they love someone, they love people hard. And I think that it's a little bit surprising because the independence factor of Aries, like, no, I'll do it. Don't worry about me, right? Like, I've got this. I can handle this. It doesn't mean that they don't have this like softness to them because they're so bold, right? If you think of boldness like as just being go, 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 then you're going to be confused when you meet an Aries who has a bit more of like a, like, oh, like, you know, and like, you're not just all Aries, right? Like, I do know someone who is an Aries sun, moon, and rising. I'm like, that, you know,
I do too.
I'm like, wow, okay. But, you know, that person's also a nurturing lover too. So it's like, you know, a lover of so many things. It's just such a good way to look at an Aries of like action oriented, bold, courageous, brave, but also like cares so deeply. You can't underestimate that side of an Aries too. Just because maybe they don't show it to everyone doesn't mean it's not there. And then, okay, where does an Aries shine, right? Like, how do they shine? What's going on? Like, obviously taking initiative. Boom, first to raise their hand, like, I'll do it. I've got this. Whether that's always what they want to do or not is a good question, but Aries is not afraid to volunteer. They're not afraid to go first. They're not afraid to be that inspiration for others. And I think that's such a really admirable quality. Fearless in the face of challenges. Not always. I mean, you might be an Aries thinking like, no, I say no worries, but there are worries, right? And that's okay. Like, this isn't just one-sided, but like Aries are natural leaders just because it comes to them. It's like, you know, I'm bringing back this example of children, but I think of the children on a playground. And when I walking in my neighborhood and stuff and I hear the kids on the playground, it's hilarious because they're all trying to initiate the rules of the game. They're like, no, but we have to do it this way. No, we have to do it this way. Like, no, we should do it this way. And like, of course, there's some of them who are like, you know, whatever, I don't care. Like, just there to play. But if you think of that, like, that's that Aries energy. It's like in corporate America, it's like the forceful person is like, this is how the project's going to go. And it's not always bad because sometimes we need that spark of someone to suggest something and say, this is the leadership way that we're going to do this, for someone else to respond and be like, but maybe. And as we get through the rest of the 12 signs, you'll see where these signs have come up of like giving a different perspective. But that Aries spark is something that we should not overlook because it is a gift. And without that spark that Aries brings, we might be really stagnant, you know? So then where does Aries struggle? This is a little personal for me. Sometimes patience can be hard for Aries because that initiatory energy is so bold for them. It can be very difficult for them to feel like patience, you know? As an Aries moon, like the only place I've ever learned patience was through gardening. I had to wait. The seeds were planted and then they had to germinate, they had to grow, they had to bloom. And it is a process. You can't rush the process, but some things in life, you know, especially in the 21st century, we're like, we could totally rush the process in a lot of ways, and we can, but when it comes to certain things, we just cannot. And so, you know, follow through can also be a little bit of a struggle for Aries, but it's not the end of the world. We get bored. We definitely get bored, and we can get really frustrated if things aren't moving as fast as we want. So when Aries struggles with these things, it's also a really good idea to think about the balance, right? Like the balance point of, you know, when things aren't moving fast enough and getting frustrated, just thinking of like, wow, I really do have a gift for initiation. I really do have a gift for making things happen, for being a mover and a shaker, for being first to volunteer for things and get things done. So as much as we can struggle in certain ways, we also have all these amazing gifts that outweigh that. And like, how can you see the balance point of each of these struggles, or maybe areas that we don't shine as brightly, as being, you know, a way to emphasize what we are really, really good at. And then, you know, just like some lesser known things about Aries, like, or maybe even not lesser known things, but I think it's just interesting. Like there's a huge playful side to Aries that I think like kind of gets overlooked with all the initiatory bold energy, but Aries are fun and playful, and all signs are, but like, you know, intensity can sometimes mask like fun loving childlike sense of wonder that Aries naturally has. When people have told me, Nicole, you have such a childlike sense of wonder, years ago when I was like masking myself to feel like to fit in as a corporate executive, I was like, never say that again. Never tell anyone that. But like, what a beautiful gift to have a childlike sense of wonder and to have that beauty and that awe just available to you as one of your biggest strengths. I think it's so amazing. Aries also will always have the bold solution. Impulsivity is true. Like Aries can be impulsive, but they will come up with bold solutions. They can really make big, big change. And I think it's like really fun to watch an Aries come up with a creative solution because they will almost always have something unique to do, to say, and like be optimistic, right? And an optimistic person, like if you ask a kid to solve a problem, they're going to come up with some pretty interesting ideas. And maybe we should do that more often. Like maybe we should really seek out the Aries for like coming up with really creative solutions to some problems. And so obviously we could talk about Aries forever. The first cardinal sign of the zodiac, coming out strong out of the gate, really initiating things, but that's my hot take.
That's so good. And I feel like as you were talking, there's so much interesting energy. Like you specifically having Aries in your chart. I have no Aries in my chart. So all I have is just like what I've observed and what I've seen. And so I love just all of like the beauty that you brought into this Aries energy. Like, yes, like it is bold. It is like forceful. It is like initiative and it is strong energy. But at the same time, there's this childlike wonder and this playfulness and this love, this big heartedness that they have. And so I loved that you touched on all of those things too, and really brought this side of Aries that maybe isn't like what is typical that people talk about. When I think about Aries, I love thinking about the Aries ram because the ram, as the symbol of Aries, is this like strong force of nature that is like when it has its mind set on something, it's going to go forward with it. It goes fast, it goes hard, and it is like going to move anything out of its way. Like, do not get in an Aries way when they have shit to do.
Yes.
And I see Aries is definitely like the entrepreneur archetype too, because it can be that initiating force. Like when you're an entrepreneur and you're needing to create something, you're needing to get things out the door and whatever it is, right? It could be any creative nature, any creative endeavor you're wanting to start, or anything that you're just doing in life in general. You are going to be that leading energy of it. You are going to be first to take action on it, to do the thing, and nothing's going to get in your way. Absolutely nothing. So I also see too Aries just being, it's like that frontline energy, right? When shit hits the fan and everything's going wrong, they're like first in order to like, okay, here's what we need to do. Let's take action here. Like they don't think about it. They're not like stuck in analysis paralysis. They're like, let's just do and let's go for it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so interesting because as I was thinking about Aries energy, I totally get manifestor human design vibes. Like there's not any other sign other than Aries. And I'm like, if you're an Aries / manifestor in human design, like boom, I feel like you're double manifestor there.
Right.
But even if you're not a manifestor, if you have Aries in your chart, you might really relate a lot to manifestor human design as an energy type because you are someone who is here to be initiative, to take forward action, to be the fire starter. Like literally, if you're thinking about a fire, a bonfire, like you are the one lighting the fire, like the fire starter. So yeah, there's such an exciting and, as you said, childlike fun and playful energy to Aries that, so much to explore there.
Yeah, that frontline energy, as you said, like, and the entrepreneur archetype, totally see that. That makes a lot of sense. Not afraid. Not afraid, and also like not wasting any time. Just go. I won't be talking about every single sign in succession like this, but I am going to take Taurus because it is the counterpoint balance to a lot of my Scorpio energy. And so I understand the opposite energy of it a lot. I have a lot of Taurus friends as well that have given me great perspective on this. And we joke, we're like opposites attract. And so, okay, when you think of a Taurus is represented by the bull. It is the second sign. It comes after Aries. And it's kind of funny to me, like how Keelie just mentioned the ram of Aries, like go, like not going to stop, like going fast and hard. Whereas the bull is like, well, I can do a lot of damage too, but only if I really get going. But I'm going to be a sturdy, solid presence, chewing this grass, do whatever I got to do, hanging out. And so when I think of Taurus, like one aspect of Taurus is totally the nature lover, right? So divinely connected to the earth, so beautiful. If you think of Taurus, the time of year, it's springtime, it's a beautiful May day. It just has this serene, sensual, reliable energy. Like, when it comes to spring, like you're going to feel that spring energy. But at Taurus, like, while you can be this like beautiful nature lover, you can also be like a super solid, secure, great with physical resources person, like the reliable, worker, the reliable person, a sturdy balance that comes into people's lives, like just always there, very loyal, very smart. But another side too, like to think about is like Taurus, and I've met some Taurus people who are like, no, I'm not like that, but they like love comfort and beauty and like luxurious vibes. And it doesn't have to be expensive. It could be literally velvet, or it could be like the nicest feeling blanket you've ever felt, but it was only $14. But like they're going to appreciate that piece of things. And it's so funny when I meet a Taurus who hasn't really connected with their side of like the material world being like truly very spiritual. They're like, oh, and then as they do, I find it to be such a beautiful evolution. And so, Taurus really can be so many things: grounded, stable, reliable, sensual, into beauty, loving the physical plane of earth a lot. Nature lovers connected to this earth. So when we think of Taurus, there's a lot of aspects of that. But in a relationship, oh my gosh, a Taurus in a relationship. Loyal, just done. No, I'm just kidding. But like steady and loyal and just really grounded. Like that partner, like when they commit, they've committed. Forget it. Like you were connected forever. Like they're with it, and not like in a psycho way, but like they really just love being that steady guiding force for a relationship. I find like when a Taurus says yes, like they express their love more through action and through physical affection and things like that. Like a Taurus person is going to be like, yeah, I'm sure they're going to give you a gift, but like it's like actions speak louder than words is kind of like what I think of a Taurus. Like they're just going to be there, a steady, stable force in your life. Just so loving. I think a Taurus in a relationship is really, really beautiful. But something I think that surprises people about Taurus, like overall, is that while Libra, we'll get to this in the next episode, is typically known for their eye for beauty and things, Taurus is too. I think Taurus has a really great eye for beauty and for seeing like this artistic nature of life. I think that's so connected to their, earthy groundedness that they are connected to, Mother Earth so well. But a lot of times Taurus is so practical, so stable, so steady that I think their eye for beauty gets overlooked. And that they're not really prized for that. They're not like, yeah, like Taurus, so creative, so good, because they're super like stable and reliable and steady, and like they're known as the go-to person to like get things done and like to be that reliable worker, to like show up early and leave late, right? Like that's that person that you wouldn't know that like actually their creative vision is really, really strong. Where a Taurus shines, like totally building stability. And if we go with that thread of like how their creativity, like they can create beautiful spaces. I think of like a Taurus as probably being like a really great landscape architect, right? Like and being able to like make this beauty around them, especially when it comes to like more earthy things. But they can be like this steady, steady rock for so many other people in their life. Like when you meet a Taurus, like it is likely that they will be the same when you met them as they are later in life. Now, of course, they're going to develop and they're going to evolve, but like their reliability probably will not change. Like they will always like pick up the phone, or they'll always like text you back. Like they're a reliable presence. And I think that like that practicality that they bring is just so needed when you come from that first sign of Aries into Taurus. Like you've got that like kind of like wild, unpredictable, bold Aries, and then you move right into this solid, steady Taurus. And so you can see how this starts to build and give us the archetypes we need. But where does a Taurus struggle? Taurus can struggle letting go of control. Very controlling. They need to know what's going to happen. They love a comfort zone just as much as they love that luxurious blanket and they love that beauty and they love that comfort. It can be hard for them to break out of the comfort zone. They might end up doing the same thing over and over again forever, even though they want to grow, even though they want to expand and all of this stuff, because they're stuck in the, I have to be physically and safe and secure. I must stay physically safe and secure. But growth happens outside of that comfort zone. So being resistant to change is really natural to a Taurus. It's not to say that they won't change, because they definitely do. And so many Taurus like people are so successful because they are really stable and resourceful and grounded. But, for them, when they hit that edge of change, sometimes it can be hard. It can be hard for them to say, I should just make this change, because that like rocks like all that stability that they want, that they crave. And, when they want to have that creativity and they want to break out of their comfort zone, it can feel like it can feel like an earthquake to their center, because they work so hard for this, this stability and all of this. And it's so interesting. One of my best friends is a Taurus, and we joke all the time, like she used to have a box of money. And she's like, I love filling this box up with money. and then taking it to the bank and depositing it. And I was like, are you crazy? Like, what do you mean? She's like, I just love seeing my resource. And I was like, oh my God, that is so funny. Like, she lived for this, like, filling the box. Like, she used to bartend, and she was like, yeah, so I put all my tips in there, and like, it's great. And then, like, she would fill this box. And then, you know, when she would have to, like, use the money for something, she'd be like, oh, I don't know. Even though she had, like, so much of it. So, like, a Taurus to me is so funny like that. They're like, wealthy, right? They're like, got all this money, and she's like, but I don't want to use it for anything. And so sometimes, like, the desire to break out of the comfort zone can be so strong. It really does rock their core of like, can I let go of control of this situation for just a hot minute and trust that my stability, my material safety and success will not be questioned here. You know, but some additional things about Taurus that I personally love: unwavering loyalty. Just like I said in the beginning, like, their commitment is just unmatched. Like, I mean, even I had a boss one time that, like, even if you were wrong, like, she'd be like defending you to the mat. Like, she'd be like, these are my people, like, don't worry. Like, she'd be like, we'll deal with the problem in private. But like, she's like, no, my people have done nothing wrong. And it was always like, oh, thank you, I appreciate that. Even though, like, in the conference room together, she'd be like, what the heck happened, you know? And I feel like she probably had some Taurus energy there. But also too, like, Taurus can feel like, if they feel like they've been wronged, watch out. You know, because that is just not cool to them. Like, feeling stable, secure, balanced, and like physically secure on this plane, like possessions, material things, attitude, the way they're perceived. If they feel like they've been wronged, like, watch out. Like, they will fight for that loyalty that they deserve. Another thing, like, we touched on this nature lover. Now, you might be a Taurus, you might not be a nature lover in the way that I'm describing, but I'm pretty sure you have a deep connection to this earth, and you really thrive here for a reason, because it's so connected and grounded to earth. I think that's a beautiful quality, and I'd encourage any Taurus to explore, what is your connection to earth? What are your connection to the outdoors, to the forest, to the desert, to the ocean, to the mountains? Like, whatever it is, you probably have a connection in a way that differs from others. Even if you think it's the same, you might have that little extra, like, you know, hey, I just love this, like, a little bit more than I thought. But a Taurus can often be laid back too, right? Like, they can seem really laid back, easy go with the flow, but they're like persistent. When everyone else takes a nap, like when they're so exhausted, like, Taurus is like, I'm just gonna keep going. Like, very metered and intense and very, like, they know what they're doing. And it may just take some people by surprise when, like, a Taurus, like on a chart is like this steady growth, right? Whereas, like, an Aries might be like an exponential curve, like a whoosh, like right out of the gate. Like, a Taurus might be like, I'm going to take steps and steps and steps. Like, this is the person who's like retires and has like, I don't know, like $50 million. And you're just like, how? And they're just like, well, it just happened, you know, like compound interest. And they're like, yay, you know, and they like retire at like 55 and they're like, okay, you know, see you later. Like, that's like really cool, unstoppable Taurus vibes to me, and probably way more than 50 million. And maybe it might be a bit hard for them to retire at 55, but they could if they wanted to, that kind of thing. So that's my little dissertation on my Taurus friends.
I loved that last part where you're like, they just like will retire at 55 and $50 million or however much, and you're like, where the hell did that happen? Like, where did that come from? And they're just like, hey, like, I know how to play the game here.
Exactly.
Taurus, yeah. So, you know, if like Aries is kind of like the fire starter, if I'm going back to that like analogy that I used about this like fire pit, I almost like I was envisioning as you were talking, Nicole, of like the Taurus energy. Like, Taurus is literally the foundation, right? Like, you can't build a fire if there's not a whole thing of like firewood and everything that you need. Like, it is the foundation to be able to even start whatever it is you want to start. You can start all things you want. You can use that Aries energy to start things. But like, where's the foundation, right? And like, Taurus can really come in and knows how to lay that solid foundation. And that's why you were saying, like, you know, any change that can come can really rock their stability, because foundation for them is everything. So like, if change is knocking on the door, it's like, okay, how do I continue to maintain this strong, sturdy foundation that I've already built? And how can I like bring in change while continuing to maintain that stability and that foundation? Like, foundation is so core to Taurus's being. And yeah, there's just so much staying power in it. You know, it's like consistent. As you were talking about reliability, it is like, it is consistent. It is staying power. It stays the course and knows how to stay the course. And I was really thinking too, I don't have a connection to every sign with human design. Obviously, there's not as many human design energy types. But as I think about Taurus, I think so much of generator energy, because generator energy is so much about like taking things forward and staying the course and moving forward in like a step by step by step by step process. That's very much a generator energy in human design. And it's very much the same as like Taurus energy. Like Taurus is here to build in the physical world, like in even using their hands, right? Like anything that the five senses, things you can touch, see, smell, taste, feel. Like if you're using your hands like out in the garden or to build something or to paint art or to cook in your home or to bake goods, like anything you're using your hands and building and creating in the physical form is that Taurus energy. They are really here to build in the physical form. And even their creative energy is creative energy here to like create in physical form and build. Even I think about like pottery, right? You're literally using your hands to create something. So yeah, Taurus is, I love the Taurus energy, and they're very hardworking individuals.
Yeah, absolutely. I love what you said, like build with your hands, and then like
Yeah.
pottery, and it's like something that comes from the earth and you're shaping it with your hands. Like, thank you, Taurus, for building the foundation for everything else we need, because without you, we would really be lost. We would just be unsteady, you know?
Yeah. And I even think too, like, gosh, think about a manifesting generator who's a Taurus, you know? It's like you might be this Taurus energy, but then you're like, but I'm just like, go, 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 do a bunch of things. Taurus is a permission slip to like slow down and be present. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And if you ever find yourself, like if you have a bunch of Taurus energy in your chart, you've got your sun, moon, and rising there, and you're like, man, like I don't go slow. Like I go really quick, fast pace. Like I'm a manifesting generator. Maybe I move a bunch of directions. Maybe I'm a manifestor. I'm always starting things. Great, be that. But at the same time, you can also be this strong, steady force that knows how to be focused on building a solid foundation for yourself and being uber present in the moment, right? Like meditation could be like, I think if there's any sign that's going to meditate, Taurus is the sign that's like, drop in and do a five senses meditation. Connect with the ground and the earth and the world around you and with yourself in the moment.
Absolutely. Beautifully said.
Okay, so moving on to Gemini energy. When I was thinking about Gemini energy, there were several things that came to mind when thinking about like the vibe of it all, right? Gemini is an air sign, which again, we're going to get into all the elements and the modes of things in a different episode, but first and foremost, I really see this vibe of Gemini being this like social butterfly energy, okay? Because it's very skilled in its communication, it's very skilled in networking and going out and like making connections with other people. And one of the things that I think is really cool too when you're thinking about this is like if you actually look at like the actual symbol of the sign, I'm not talking about the twins, but like the actual symbol of the sign, you've got these like two parallel lines. And then you've got this like curve at the top and then the curve at the bottom. And these two parallel lines are connecting the top curve and the bottom curve. And the way that I really see that is like, this is connecting, this is you are this channel connecting the heavens and the earth. You are quite literally the messenger, the line of communication between the heaven and earth. Gemini is here to be the messenger. And so even thinking to yourself, if you've got Gemini in your energy, you know, sun, moon, and rising or anything else, it's like, what message am I here to deliver? What am I here to communicate? How am I here to communicate? To who am I here to communicate to? In relationship, Gemini is amazing at making friends. I have so many incredible Geminis in my life. I tend to attract them as an Aquarian. It is a sign that I am here to know very well in my life. I also have my Mars in Gemini as well. And this is just the kind of person who's really here to have a strong social network, to go out and make those connections and to have their people. And this very much gives me line 4 energy in human design, because the line 4 energy in human design is all about networking, all about building its network and spotting opportunities. Gemini is very much the same way as that. They're like opportunists, and their network can be everything for them. They definitely also give me, I'm going back to human design because I can't not. And I'm like, for some reason, it's like these first three signs give me these vibes. Manifesting generator energy for sure is Gemini energy, because Gemini energy is so multi-passionate. They love to like get their minds and their brains and their hands into all sorts of different things. And they're designed to maneuver really quickly, like shift directions. Like they might be in one direction over here and immersed in, one topic over here. Next thing you know, they're in a completely other direction, doing a completely other thing. And you're like, whoa, like it's almost hard to keep up with them. Same thing in conversation. They are like such gifted conversationalists, kind of going back to that like social butterfly energy. They just know how to make really great conversations, and they can have a lot to talk about and a lot of interesting things to talk about. If you're ever in a conversation with Gemini, maybe it's just me because I'm Aquarius and we are like two peas in a pod going back and forth, but I'm like, I have the best conversations with Gemini. So yeah, and it's pretty consistent. Like when I see someone with a lot of Gemini energy, it's like I just feel that ability of them to be able to connect and just make connections in this kind of effortless way. And that doesn't mean you have to be super talkative. You can still be an introvert and be a Gemini. It doesn't mean you're this like super extroverted person. It just means that you have an ability, this like gift of gab, this ability to be able to go out and make conversation with other people and get to know other people. So Gemini's very, very adaptable. I talked about that multi-passionate, able to maneuver and change directions really quickly. They're super adaptable to just like changing environments. We talked about Taurus. That's like, okay, I don't know about like how I feel about all this change. And Gemini's like, bring it on. Like I get way too restless if I'm stuck in like one direction doing the same thing. Like give me a lot of different things to like learn and know and dissect and engage with. So with this though, I will say too, it is this like natural restlessness that is kind of putting them in a bunch of different directions and like wanting them to jump ship and go a different way, as they're kind of immersed in a bunch of different things. And so this restlessness can be something that in general, Gemini energy could struggle with and cause them to like lose focus too easily. So there's this mindfulness too about just considering, right? Because you can also wear yourself out. You're so restless with where you want to give your energy. You're so interested in so many different things. It's really important to be mindful. Okay, like where do I want to give my energy today? And it's okay if you want to give it to a lot of different things and maneuver around, but attuning to maybe to your human design and saying like, okay, what feels aligned for me today? Like where should I give my energy today that feels really good without like wearing myself out with all this like energy that just doesn't know where to go and wants to go everywhere and nowhere all at the same time. Gemini also, such a vibe. They are the freaking creative genius. They are logical, they're rational, their minds work really fast, and they have this ability to come up with these really genius ideas. Like truly, they are just this like creative idea genius. There's people who are very curious and have this strong need for intellectual stimulation, for learning. They are always, always learning and always diving into topics and subjects that interest them. They're also like really fast and really quick to take in information and process information. That's why they can be so intelligent and like just know a bunch of different things, because they can just take in and process things pretty quickly. And all in all, they're really versatile in their skills. Like they know a lot of different things, and that's one of the ways that they're really here to shine, is just through this ability to be this like highly skilled individual who's really good with like changing circumstances. I think about, with change comes a lot of growth. And so they're all about growth. Like Gemini wants progression. Gemini wants forward growth. Like they embrace the change and they embrace the growth that comes with the change. And Gemini also is really known for, like I said before, having that gift of gab. They know what to say. They know when to say it. They know how to say it. They're just very skilled with their ability to communicate and to use their voice. Geminis too are really great at gathering people together, like bringing people together, bringing their loved ones in, their friends, their network, their, social circle, like bringing everyone together. They're really great at doing that as well. And so I think ultimately when I think about how Gemini energy in general is here to shine, it's really thinking about, what's the message that you're here to communicate? Because you have Gemini for a reason. You're the messenger for a reason. You have this messenger energy in your chart and in your life for a reason. You came here to deliver some kind of message. Who is that to? Or what is it about? Or where are you delivering this message? That's how you're here to shine. And one of the ways you're here to shine. I would say one of Gemini's struggles as just an energy in general is just this idea of like shiny object syndrome, because that restless energy does want to be in so many different things all at the same time that it's like, okay, like where do I focus my energy right now, right? Like, and it's perhaps letting yourself quit something too soon or move on to something else too soon, or never really going deep into something that you are meant to go deep into, and that you're really meant to kind of spend your time like, nurturing just what it is that you're learning about this one thing. Like, you can be so interested in so many different things, but also asking, am I getting stuck in like this like shiny object syndrome? And I'm just chasing around like a bunch of shiny objects that aren't really like helping me, really ground into something. It can be valuable for a Gemini to find some kind of grounding energy in whatever it is that they are, exploring or learning or doing. And then the other kind of thing that I see Gemini energy just in general struggling with, it's like this energy of like jack of all trades, master of none. And I don't necessarily think that this is, I think when we hear that, it's like, oh, that's like this negative thing. Like, you're a jack of all trades, master of none. And at the same time, I think about it like this, right? And maybe you're someone out there who's like a coach or a creator, and you're always told like, oh, you got to niche down, you got to focus on like one thing, or, focus your energy into one specialty, whether like you're a coach or something else, someone else out there, in a career path. It's like specialize. And maybe you don't want to specialize. Maybe you're like, but I just love knowing everything about this one topic. And as I was thinking about this, I was really thinking about like a doctor. You can be a specialty doctor who's very focused in one area of expertise and be known for that one person who does that one thing. Or you can be a general doctor. You can be a primary care physician. Both are equally as important and needed. And so if you have this Gemini, it's important to recognize within yourself, I just love knowing a lot about like a little about a lot of different things. And that really serves me. And that's really supportive. And that's how I'm here to really show up and support others. And how I'm here to share my gifts, and that is totally okay. So I guess with that too, it's again kind of going back to that permission slip of thinking about, am I getting stuck in shiny object syndrome, or is knowing about all these things like, perhaps in the area of doctor and health or wellness or whatever, like I want to know a lot about this area, right? And just knowing kind of where to focus your energy, and perhaps using your human design to help you with that. So I think the last thing that I want to talk about with Gemini, and I think it's just this, okay, this goes kind of with what people don't really know. Okay. I think a lot of people think of Gemini energy and they think about this reputation of, oh, it's like they're the twins, they're two-faced, they're two-sided. And I think that this is often talked about like in a really kind of not so positive light about the Gemini energy. And I actually see this idea that like Geminis can see like two different perspectives, like two different ways, like the contrast of what they can see and who they can be is actually like one of their greatest gifts, because they can see things in so many different ways. Okay. And if you have Gemini energy in your chart, you have this ability to bring these two different perspectives to the table in a really objective way. And so, the twins in general, when we think about Gemini, they're said to have, there's a light twin and there's a dark twin. And again, I don't really like the way that this is often talked about or portrayed, but the gift here is that we all have a high expression, a low expression, a light side, a dark side. And Geminis, wow, do you guys, in this energy in your chart, it has this incredible wisdom about yourself and this ability to see and understand both the light and the dark, right? What's beneath the surface and what's above the surface for everyone to see, but what's also underneath. And you can bring light to both of them and the duality of life. Geminis are incredible with understanding just the duality, the dualistic nature of life that we live in. And I think too, when we talk about Scorpio, which we'll talk about in the next episode, there was a similarity here that I wanted to bring up too, because Scorpio is so much about bringing what's beneath the surface, right? What's dark, what's hidden to light. And in a similar way, the Geminis are here to know what's both light and what's both dark, what's both high and what's both low, and what's the contrast between the two. And they can really see both sides in a beautiful way. Almost in the same way as like Libra, they're here to kind of like balance. Gemini with the twins, it's such a wisdom that they have of just being able to see both sides, just this dualistic nature of life. So I had to just end on that note because I just hear from so many Geminis. Again, I have so many and they're like, Geminis get such a bad rap. Like nobody likes Geminis. And I'm like, no, they're so misunderstood. Like that part of them is so misunderstood. And it's such a label that I'm like, we've got to talk about it.
Absolutely. I mean, when you were talking about that Gemini Scorpio connection, I was just like, wow, that makes so much sense. My best friend of over 25 years is a Gemini and a super like Gemini sun rising Mercury, like big heavy Gemini energy. And we do have that deep bond. And I feel like it's because she can see the light in the dark. And then I'm like, let's unearth the dark, like, as a Scorpio energy that we really do jive together. But she keeps me like vibrant and fun and like going and not just like so like like sometimes the Scorpio can get lost in that sauce to be like a little too like oh no, but when I think of Gemini energy like you were describing, like it just is like zest for life, flirting with life, like Gemini with that communication, that ability to like talk to so many people and just really express so beautifully. Like sometimes they may come off as like flirts, but I just think it's like their way of like intellectually interacting with life in such a cool and dynamic way, that they're often like just really connected to life around them. I think it's so fun. I also see Gemini super pliable, like very flexible, like, mentally flexible, right? As we've discussed, but just in general, like they can bend and twist and go all these different ways, and it makes it really cool. I feel like a Gemini is like, okay, let's make a plan. Let's go. And it's like so much like building on that, like, okay, Aries, like initiatory, Taurus, like let's have a strong foundation. And then like Gemini's like, woo, 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 like how are we going to do this? Like very, very cool. And as you said with Libra, with the balance, if we didn't have Gemini energy to start, to be able to see the light and to be able to see the dark, Libra wouldn't be able to balance it later on down the line if we didn't have someone so clearly identifying, communicating, and highlighting that difference in that duality. Gemini, so cool. I just love it. I think that Geminis do get a bad rap for sure, and they don't deserve it because I think they're really dynamic and really cool people.
Yeah, if you're a Gemini, you're already my best friend. I love you guys, so I don't understand the rap.
That's so funny. I have a cousin who's a Gemini, and it's like I could totally see her like go both ways. And it's like, I think it drives her Cancer mom and Leo sister mad because she's like, I see both sides of this. And they're like, what? Like, what do you mean? And it's just so funny because I always remind them, like when they're all like they're driving each other crazy. I'm like, you guys all picked each other for a reason. And it's this evolutionary journey between Gemini, Cancer, and Leo that you're trying to figure out. And I think it's really funny because as an observer, I'm like, that's perfect. It's like so good as like a group of women to like evolve together.
Yeah, I love that.
So next up, we have Cancer. Now, Cancer. What an interesting sign. And I do have some Cancer energy in my chart. I have Chiron and Jupiter here. And this is one of the things that like I didn't always vibe with either at the beginning of my astrological journey. I was like, I kind of just like, yeah, planets over there, whatever, Cancer energy. And Cancer energy is beautiful. But we've gone through this initiatory, like trailblazer Aries energy, this foundational, steady, stable Taurus energy to this really cool, airy, expressive communication, butterfly energy of Gemini. And then we get to the emotions with Cancer. We meet the depth of emotions here. Now, Cancer, my gosh, the vibe of Cancer, so nurturing, intuitive, deeply emotional. Cancer is the ultimate caregiver. Now, that doesn't mean that just because you're a Cancer means you have to give to everyone, right? Or take care of everyone. But naturally, it is so natural to you. Like, you'd be a great hostess. Like, okay, you know what? I know that so-and-so loves sparkling water, and I know that so-and-so loves still water, and then this person really likes iced tea. Like, I'm going to make sure I have all of those things. Like, you're really just thinking of the needs of others. And so this is a beautiful quality to have. And when I think of Cancer, I think of the crab, okay? And sometimes people are like, the crab, like, what, with big claws? And it's like, no, but like, think about how a crab, like, feels everything around them. Like, they're like, do, like, walking around and, like, their little feelers are out and trying to understand, like, where is danger? Where is this? And if you think of a crab, the crab has a soft inner part to them that has to be protected, or else like every seagull, everything would just eat it, because if it didn't have that harder shell exterior, it would be extremely vulnerable. And so when I think of Cancer, I think of like, wow, this really soft and safe person, like covered with this harder shell. And so sometimes like when you meet a Cancer, you might not know their emotional nature right away. They might have a little bit of a protection for good reason because they are such beautifully natured people. Now, oh my gosh, a Cancer in a relationship. Wow. Talk about devoted and protective, like super protective of who they love. You know, they are really into building deep emotional connection. You cannot be with a Cancer and not know that they love you. I think like that's like so really nice about Cancerian people. It's like they really do love hard and they like to create like a safe and cozy environment for their people. And what's interesting, like when you think of a Cancer, it's probably like someone be like, how are you feeling? And you're like, good. And they'll be like, no, but like really, like, how are you really feeling? And then you're like crying and you're like, why am I crying all of a sudden? Like a Cancer friend is like the mom of the friend group, right? And like they're making sure everyone's good and taken care of, nobody's lost. And that could be a lot of work. That could be a lot of work for a Cancer. And so we deserve to give, Cancers deserve a bit more credit at like how attuned they are to the other. And what's something interesting though is that like, you know, they are so attuned to the other that they have to attune to themselves, right? Like, what do they deeply, deeply want? What do they deeply, deeply need? And so I find with Cancers like that they often are like, no, I just make sure everyone else around me is good. But you can't pour from an empty cup, and Cancer certainly cannot give to others if they don't feel emotionally stable within themselves. And so it's super important that they look inward too. I think what people would be surprised about Cancer is that like, even though they are this like soft, emotional, beautiful presence, that they're really freaking strong. Like they really are strong. When you think of a crab, like crabs are really strong. And sometimes people think like, you know, they mistake like niceness or, you know, sensitivity for weakness. Absolutely not. A Cancer is extremely strong, and their emotional intelligence, their emotional attunement is actually their superpower. And you know, their ability to sense and feel is strong. Like it is strong. Almost like they know when something's going on before you do. You know, when I think of this energy, like to bring it a little bit to human design, like I think of this energy as a little bit like reflector energy, but definitely projector, non-sacral being, you know, very like slow and casual when it comes to things, but like deeply attuned. Cancer shines in their emotional depth, their empathy, their EQ, you know, like of course they're smart too, but their emotional intelligence is like off the charts, but they create bonds with people. Like Cancers are like tight, thick as thieves, right? Like they feel like a walking home for other people. You know, like that energy of just like, you know, like that friend you have that you don't have to clean your house for when they come over, like that's Cancer energy. Like they don't care. They're like, hey, I'm here. Like we're home together. And they're really good at like, similar to Taurus at being steady and stable with being there through ups and downs, but it's more of a felt feeling versus just a presence, I'd say. It's so much. But Cancers, like, okay, so Cancers, they can struggle with like maintaining boundaries with people. Sometimes they get a little bit lost in the sauce. Like they take on everything from everybody else. And like, how much can one crab carry, right? Like what kind of backpack do they have? I don't know. And so sometimes like the tides of their own emotions can rise and fall, but they're like too busy worrying about everyone else, and they can like literally get swept up in like literal emotional tides. But they can get overwhelmed by feelings, and that makes so much sense because they can feel so much. So when we think of Cancer and like the hard exterior shell, that is so needed. That is their fortress so that they don't end up taking on too much, right? You need to create that boundary for yourself as a Cancer to like allow yourself to feel, but know like what is the container, right? And think of that as your shell. What is the container I'm allowing myself to feel so I don't get totally swept up, taken out to sea, like whatever that may be. But also, Cancers, I beg of you, when it is time to upgrade your home, your emotional home, you know, as you grow, you outgrow your shell and you need a new shell and you need to like grow into a bigger shell. It happens. And so that can feel really jarring for Cancers. It's like, okay, like I need to change, I need to make a change, or I'm outgrowing this shell, but oh my gosh, that means I'm vulnerable. I have to come out of the shell, I have to get into a new shell. Like that can feel like a lot. And so with Cancers, it's all about attuning to what you need first before you attune to the others. Kind of like on an airplane, they say, put on your own mask before you help others with their masks. Cancer would be putting on everyone else's mask. Like, you good, you good, you good. But then they're like, oops, like no oxygen for me. Like, oh no, like what am I gonna do? And like, game over. So you have to make sure you put on your own mask and then help others. You know, something I think that people overlook about Cancers is like, I find Cancerian people to be creative visionaries. I really do. I think they have this like depth of feeling that allows them to unearth things that like the average person may not see in like a creative visionary way, like writers. Like I feel like Cancers would be great writers, poets, things like that. But while they are really attuned to emotions, they have this strong instinct, like physical instinct, for safety and things. Like they know when something's off, like just as much as they can attune with their little feelers, that helps them attune. Now that can be a blessing and a curse because it could be like high alert type of feeling as a Cancer, but it can also be really, really helpful for them to be like, the wind's blowing differently, like something's not right, like the tides are changing, like what's going on, like they can attune quickly and like help others, sense that out as well. And maybe that sounds really survival based, but I think if we can think of it like our original instincts were to survive and now they're to thrive. So like, they have that nature in them. And then finally, like I've never met a Cancer that doesn't have like a really funny sense of humor. Like, I don't know whether it's because they can feel so much, but like they have like a sharp tongue and like a sharp wit to them that like almost like a dark sense of humor too that I find really like common among like the water signs, among like Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces. Like that just, you're like, oh my gosh, if I would have said that with like a Gemini, they'd be like, what? But like when I say it to a Cancer, they're like, ha. They kind of find it to be really funny. And so I think Cancers really bring such a dynamic, just a dynamic lens to everything in the world. And I mean, if we think about them too, like they're the mother archetype. Whether you identify mother as like feminine or masculine, like whatever, like it is a really nurturing archetype. And as much as like in the wild, certain animals, like I forget, maybe it's an octopus that like literally spends her time. Probably should really know exactly what I'm talking about here, but I know this. The octopus spends all of this time protecting her young and like feeding them, like to the point that she almost doesn't eat. And like after like rearing her young and like getting them set up and like going, I think she dies. And so if we think of that mother archetype as like literally giving life, the Cancer is really a good example of like that life-giving, nurturing safety container that everyone needs in their life. And everyone has this in their chart. Very homey, protective vibe. So look at where you have Cancer in your chart and know that that's flavoring that area of your life, even if you have no planets there.
So good. It's interesting when I think about the Cancer energy and its symbol of the crab and having that hard exterior shell. One of the things I think so much about is like bodybuilder energy, because one of the ways that I think just naturally, it's like, if our body is our home and like if we want to create that strong outer exterior energy, there's so many bodybuilders out there who are Cancers and like their way of like building that tough shell that like to hold that like inner softness. It's like, oh, I'm strong, but then they're like such a teddy bear when you know them and you're like, oh my God, you're like this like big bodybuilder / teddy bear. And I love it so much.
That's so funny. I never thought of that. I'm trying to think of like, who do I know is like a bodybuilder?
The other thing that I want to speak to about Cancer is their feeling body is such a historian. Like they hold history in their body. And my husband is a Cancer moon, and I feel this so much with him because it's like he holds, like in my lowest vibrational state, if I'm like reactive and saying things that I don't mean in the moment, I see how like those words, like truly how he feels them in his body into his core in a way where like I don't. I'm like, okay, you can say something to me and it's the total sticks and stones break my bones, but words can never hurt me. But with him, I'm like, words hit deep. Like you feel that. Like you actually feel those words in your body. And I wanted to speak to that because I think with Cancers, it's like your feeling body holds on to the feeling that you had when you had an argument with this person or when you had an experience with this person, like how it made you feel, and both positive and negative experiences, right? How that person or how that interaction or how that experience made you feel, you hold that. And so even thinking too, like, gosh, I'm even just thinking about a Cancer and perhaps you go through a level of body trauma. It's like the ways that our body holds on so tightly to these things, especially as a Cancer. Somatic practices could probably be so supportive for helping you really release any historic memories that your feeling body is holding on to that maybe your brain doesn't recognize, but like every time it's like things stay there.
Wow. Yeah, the body keeps the score. I mean, that like is so famous, but it's probably super applicable to cancers. And also like when you're talking about that feeling body, like I think of all of the signs, the ones that are most affected by the actual moon and by the tides. And like I've heard another Cancer moon say like, yeah, I get bloated during the full moon. And it's not it happens. Like this is not a myth. Like this is real for me. And I'm like, wow, that's kind of crazy. So yeah, that's so fascinating about the way you feel sticks and stones and that your husband feels that so deeply. And so,
Yeah.
Especially if you have like Cancer individuals in your life, like be careful with your words. Like words are a sharp tongue, but then also to especially think of like children, right? Like oh my goodness, like their experience is so different. My best friend's daughter is a Cancer rising and an Aries sun. It's quite the combo. And so she deeply feels so much. And so I think like that's a really good point that she remembers stuff. You're right. Like she really is like a sieve for like, you said that thing. And her mom's like, oh my God. Her Gemini mom who says a lot of things. He's like, oops.
Gotta watch what comes out of that Gemini mouth.
Exactly. So she's like, I have to be careful what I say because she remembers everything.
Yeah. Mm.
Wow.
So moving on to the fifth sign of the zodiac, Leo. Leo is the second fire sign that we are now talking about today. The first being Aries. Now we're back to fire in the sign of Leo. So you're going to hear a little bit too of similarities between some of the things Nicole was talking about with Aries, also with Leo. And that's why I love that we're bringing two different perspectives, because some of the ways that she talked about Aries, I'm like, oh my gosh, I see so many similarities with some of the ways that I'm going to be talking about Leo. And so from this like fiery perspective, you'll probably hear that, and you can maybe just like sit with, if you have both Aries and Leo in your chart, and what ways are these like both showing up for you. So one of the first vibes that I was feeling into with Leo is this they are natural leaders. They've got this natural leader energy about them. Strong, strong leadership. It's one of the ways that you as a Leo are really here to shine, is as this leader. And this is whether you want to be a leader or not. There's a lot of Leos that I know where I'm like, you're a leader. Like, and I see it. And every Leo I know, I can spot a Leo from a mile away, like, whether they're in the shine or like even just those that are closest to me who aren't in the shine, right? Like, or in the spotlight. But I sense that leadership about them. And they're like, I don't want to be a leader. I'm not a leader. I'm like, oh, you're a leader. It's within you. I think it's just a matter of, I love looking at human design. And I'm going to give a couple of human design references here, because if you're looking at human design, there are pretty much several of the leadership gates are actually in the sign of Leo. And actually the strength of leadership is in the sign of Leo. And so if you do have Leo energy, look at, do I have gates 7, 31, or 33? Because these are all leadership qualities that you have within you. It's either 7 and 31 gates are logically looking forward and leading people into the future. Gate 33 is leading people based on past experiences, right? So even deepening into that, if you do really feel like you have this leader energy, you're a natural leader as it is, but even with those specific human design qualities, check if you have those gates, because that can also help you understand, am I here to logically lead people into the future, or am I here to am I here to lead others based on my past experiences and what I know from past experience? In general, though, Leos are so charismatic, which is why people love to follow them, which is why people love to be around them. The other vibe about Leo is they have the freaking biggest hearts, which is one of the things that Nicole talked about with Aries energy too. And I'm also going to talk about with Leo, because these fire signs, man, do they have really big hearts. With Leos, they love to love big, and they love to be loved in return. There is such this like natural warmth about them. Their ruling planet is the sun. So if you think about the sun in the sky, this big, bright, warm light of energy, that is Leo. That is the planet of the sign of Leo. They are warm, generous, confident, courageous, honorable, and so fiercely loyal. They're also very enthusiastic about saying yes to something. And when they say yes to something that really excites them, then they're going to be ready to commit and go all in on that thing. Again, they are another sign that has a lot of staying power. And this is also gate 29 in your human design. So if you have gate 29 Leo energy, this is that energy to have that staying power, to say yes to things, to really commit yourself to the things that you feel really excited about, really passionate about, really enthusiastic about. And I would say with that, yeah, having this big heart, right, as this Leo, one of the struggles that comes with that is that you have, and I don't even like to call this a struggle, but it is a something that you're going to experience with this Leo energy is you have really big feelings and really big emotions, which is so beautiful, but you can get your feelings hurt so easily. And that can make you feel like, oh God, that really hurt. Like my big heart, like all I want to do is like love and like share this love with others. And like someone's mean to you and you're like, ouch, that really hurt. And then maybe you're asking yourself, why am I so sensitive? Like, why? And it's not a bad thing. Sensitivity is not a bad thing. There's Leos that I know that think that their big emotions and their big feelings and their sensitivity is a bad thing. And I'm like, knowing their chart, I'm like, no, your big emotions, your big feelings are beautiful. And they're one of the biggest beautiful parts of you. Like your sensitivity is special. Like that's not something to hide away from or shy away from or feel that that's wrong. Like if you get your feelings hurt, like that's okay. You know, you are more sensitive to how others make you feel. So I think the other thing I want to say too is, you know, a vibe of Leo is you've got such a creative play energy. We talk about childlike energy. Leo is so much of child energy too. You know, Leo energy is highly creative in this like really playful and like sparkly way, like really spontaneous and fun. If you think about it, Leo energy is so much of that child energy, like the child who goes to drama club and like loves to act and like loves to like step into a different version of themselves and like be in the spotlight and like look at me, like I'm having so much fun, like, and they're doing it not because they don't like it's nothing other than they just are having fun expressing themselves, because Leo energy is so self-expressive and it is just about letting yourself shine in whatever way that feels. It doesn't mean you have to go stand on a stage and be in the spotlight. Yes, Leos are so much of these like starry-eyed performer vibes. It's like the stereotypical like actor, actress, like let me be the star on the center of the stage. But at the same time, all it is it's just about like letting yourself just like glorify in your own just beauty of being you and like letting all the best parts of you just like be out in the world open and like sharing with others and not tucking them away, not hiding them behind closed doors or whatever. But like, and it doesn't even have to, you know, depending on your own chart, it's not even like these shiny parts of you that are meant to shine and be seen. They don't even need to be like, it's not like you need to be on social media, like sharing them. Like if that serves you, great. But like, maybe it's just that you want them to be seen in your home with your family. Like maybe that's where you are here to shine, is in the home. Or maybe you're here to shine in your business or your career. Or maybe you're here to shine with like your best friends or just in your social network or, you know, whatever it is. Letting yourself just embrace the special parts of you and letting them be seen. So let me catch up with my notes because I got off track. Okay. So I also want to elaborate with the starry-eyed performer vibe that I talked about, because a lot of Leos, yes, they do not, well, I don't want to say a lot of Leos, but I've met Leos who are like, I don't resonate at all with even just this idea of, you know, wanting to be on stage. I don't want attention. I don't need attention. I don't need anyone, you know, whatever. And here's what I want to say is that at the core, this is Leo energy that all it truly wants is to feel seen. All it truly wants is to feel loved. It wants to feel heard. It wants to feel important. It just wants to feel special in some really magical way, okay? We all have a need to want to be seen and want to be loved by others, but the Leo energy really has this need on like a whole other level. It is like this need, this drive, this desire to feel seen, to feel loved by those that are in their life. And again, going back to that sensitivity, it can quite literally break that big heart of theirs when they don't feel like they have that sense of feeling seen, feeling loved, feeling important, feeling like they're making a difference, whatever it is. And so my permission slip for Leo energies that you have in your chart with this is, first and foremost, like love yourself so big. You want to be loved so big, you love others so big, but love yourself so big first. Because wherever you are seeking love from outside of you, that's your permission to like love that part of yourself first. Wherever you're seeking to be seen, by others outside of you, see that part of you first. Okay? Because life as we know it is just one big mirror. So if we're not feeling seen by others, it's just a mirror reflecting back to us how we're not yet seeing ourselves. And so that's kind of the first thing that I think with Leos, if you're in this place where you're like, I don't feel valued, I don't feel special, I don't feel seen, I don't feel loved. All I do is I give my big heart energy to everyone and nobody's giving it back to me in return. This is where we can really look at how can you give yourself that back to return first. Love yourself, see yourself. And then my message for everyone else around that is love the Leos in your life. Okay? Love them for all their big energy, for all their big feelings, for any big emotions, whatever it is, love them for their bigness because it's what makes them so damn special. So, where Leos are here to shine, as I've already said so many times, is like that sun energy, like your light is so bright. Your inner light is so bright. And there is this liveliness and this way that you live life that is so contagious to other people. And it truly lights up other people just being in your presence. And so your gift really is in this big heart energy and how you lead with that big energy. Okay. Again, so like you as this natural leader, okay, letting yourself, step into that leadership role wherever that is for you. Like, and the question to maybe ask yourself too with this is like, as a Leo, you are here to be a leading energy of something, whether that's of yourself, whether it's a leading energy in the home, leading energy of others, whatever that may be. So what is that something for you? What are you here to be the leading energy of? And then the other thing too, alongside with that, is maybe something that Leo energy can tend to struggle with is when we think about leadership, there can be forceful leadership where like, I'm the leader and I'm going to be in this position and it's my way or the highway, right? This can be a more domineering form of leadership. And it's as this natural leader, it's really important for you to, or anyone who has Leo energy in their chart to consider how they are showing up as a leader. In what way are they showing up as a leader? And not forcing yourself into leadership roles. These leadership gates that I talked about with human design, 7, 31, 33, this is elected leadership. Okay, this is earned leadership. Okay, so this is about leading yourself first and then allowing others to decide if they want to follow you. And like, that's how you find your people, right? It's not by telling people you're the leader, but it's about letting others recognize you as the leader and then following you because of how well you are leading yourself and how well you are leading others. You'll be recognized for that. So I wanted to just speak to that too, because it can sometimes just show up as even almost like a controlling thing. And like, that's where Leos just kind of want to be mindful is how are they using their ability to powerfully lead other people? Does it feel good? And your way of kind of knowing too is like, where am I feeling seen? Where am I feeling loved? Where am I feeling valued? Those are my people. And that's who wants to follow.
I really felt that like in my own heart, having
it too.
Yeah, like having Leo as the tippy top of my chart, which we'll eventually discuss, the MC, the career angle, the very top, and my South node, which is very familiar energy to me. It just felt like, wow, that is so interesting to know that like that's how, I'm showing up too. It's just like really wanting to be seen. And of course, as a projector, like having to see myself, recognize myself before others can recognize me, it's super potent. And also I was loved so fiercely by my Leo mom, and just knowing that that was like her, baseline, fierce protector, just really strong energy around that. But like, also I can see the patterns of her life of just desperately, like not desperately, but like always like wanting to be seen and loved too. Like she really, really wanted that. And she was so revered and loved by so many people. But I think that self-love aspect really could have served her a bit more. And had her and I had more time together, I think my Scorpio energy probably would have unearthed that in her. Like as, she said, arguing with me was like really difficult because it was like arguing with a mirror, like a really difficult mirror. She's like, you're just getting me like right in the feels. And that's hard. But for Leos, like my mom, like, I think of Leos as like really good gift givers too. Because they want to be like, I give the best gift. Did everyone see that gift? Like I did that. Like, but also like they love the idea of giving the gift too, like making you feel really good. But also like they're like, that bike, that was for me, you know, like that was really
You said
good.
that right? Yeah.
Yeah, like my mom on Christmas was so funny. She's like, I got this like 4 weeks ago and it was the best, it was the coldest day of the year, but it was so worth it. And it was so funny to listen to her describe like her experience with these gifts and be like, and she'd be like, do you love it? And I'd be like, oh, of course I love it. But like, you know, she wanted
How
to
much
like
do you love it? Tell me.
shape the gift giving like so much. Like,
Yeah.
you know those dads on Christmas who have no idea what's in the box? My mom was like, I know what's in every single box because I picked it very specifically for every person. But that feeling seen and loved, yeah, it's so important. And I echo what you say of like, you know, Leo's like, see and love yourself deeply, you know, because you deserve it. And also like, can we talk about a Leo's hair? Like you can just see a Leo from like a mile away. Like my mom had thick hair, really thick hair. I did not get that hair. And she was always like, this is so difficult to deal with, but like that mane, you know, not every Leo will have really thick hair, but recognizable for sure, you know? And I think that's like a really cool physical trait.
Oh my God. Was your mom or Leo rising?
Leo's son.
Okay. Well, I was going to say too, Leo risings, 100%. I know Leo risings, and it's so funny you bring up the hair because I'm like, you see it in their physical features. Like,
Yeah, actually, my one best friend who has like mega curly hair, like ringlets, big hair. Like it was so funny. Picture day, like when we were kids, like her face would be, her hair would like touch the edges. I think she's Leo rising. I have to double check, but it's so
good.
funny because you're right. That hair is unstoppable. One more thing about Leo, my mom, you could find she was like a lizard in the sun. Like she loved being in the sun. Like, and that's so funny because like obviously so sun ruled. She just was like, I'll be here, like never in the pool, always in the sun.
Yeah, that's so fascinating. So the final sign for us to dive in today is good old earthy sign of Virgo. So this is our second earth sign now that we are diving into in the zodiac, the first being Taurus, and now we're in Virgo. So this Virgo energy, the vibe, what it's all about, first and foremost, I'm like, this is complete employee of the month vibe, like through and through. Similar to Taurus, Virgo is so incredibly hardworking in a little bit of a different way though, because Virgo, like it's number one. Just what's core to their being is they want to help. They want to be of service. They want to be productive. They want to like be doing something that is helpful to someone else. They are always volunteering their help. They're always wanting to be of service to others. And they're very much this like very this typical like service provider that you think of in business. Like they've got a service to provide to someone else and they do a damn good job at it. I think about in relationship that I would not be surprised if a Virgo's love language was acts of service. Hands down, 100%. I mean, I would love to meet a Virgo that doesn't feel like at least one of their love languages is acts of service, because more than anything, at least for the way that they show love to others, is like they want to be useful, they want to be of service, and that's one of the ways that they really show love to others is like, let me help. Like, what can I do to help? I so relate to that, and it's so fascinating because I think like as I've come to know my own love languages a bit more, I'm like, wow, is that Virgo energy really strong? And like the way that I want to receive love, but also how very naturally I am giving love to others because I've got that Virgo rising and I've got my sun in my sixth house, which is also Virgo energy, which we'll talk about when we get into houses. But I've got like pretty strong Virgo energy in my chart because of that. And yeah, it's just so fascinating, even just as I reflect on that with myself, is there's a total, connection there with acts of service, love language. But ultimately, they just want to be deeply devoted to something, whether that's their partner, their job, at work, whatever it is, they want to show up, which is why they always get that employee of the month. And I'm like, no wonder I did so good in corporate. Like, I was a great employee. Like, people loved me as their employee because I freaking worked hard. Okay, so the other vibe that I'm thinking about is, I'm like, these Virgos energy is very much the data organization queen. Like think systems, processes, routines, plans, efficiency. Virgo energy is built to be able to work with and manage and process large amounts of data and information, even complex information, right? They've got that down. They can take these concepts, take a bunch of information and break it down in a very just like a very simple, structured system and process to where it like all makes sense. It's all very practical. It's all very logical. Virgo energy really brings a lot of order and alignment into your day-to-day. When you think of like the employee day-to-day, like how you're showing up at work, like the same thing like in the home or in anything that you're doing, like even in your work, it is all about like how you are structuring, how you are bringing order, how you are bringing alignment into your day-to-day energy. Also too, like think about the way that a Virgo can organize, group gatherings or parties or events. I mean, they are tuned into everything, all the details. They're able to like look at something and just say, okay, how do we make this work? How can I make this like the best event or the best party or the best gathering? They really have this capacity to hold it all and to bring it together in this really beautiful, organized way. So whether it's data or, other areas of life, they've got the systems for it. They've got the process for it, or the routine or the plan, whatever they need to make it really efficient and to make it work. They're also so incredibly productive. So they're always getting things done. They're always checking things off their list. I would not be surprised if you have Virgo in your chart and you've got a bunch of checklists. Like I totally relate to that. I'm like, give me my checklist. Like I just want it so I can check things off the list, right? It makes me feel like I'm productive. It makes me feel like I do things. Like if you're the person who you make a checklist just so you can be like, you write something down just so you can like say, well, I did this, so I'm going to write it down and now I'm going to check it off. Totally something that I do too. So it's normal. It's a total Virgo thing. And just in general, masters of the day-to-day routine, okay? All about the details of the day, which brings me to one of the other vibes of Virgo, which is the detailed perfectionist. If you want something done and you want it done right, hire someone with Virgo in their chart, with strong Virgo in their chart. Virgo energy has such a keen eye for detail. Like they can notice even the tiniest of the details. It's so funny because oh my God, this is why I was good at accounting. Like nothing got past these eyes. But same thing in the home. Like I notice everything. Like, and my husband notices absolutely nothing. And I'm like, how did you not? This has been changed for a month in the home. How have you not seen this big thing that's been in the center of our living room? And how did you not see that I put that up a month ago? He's like, oh, that's really cool. Like, when did that happen? I'm like, months ago. So he has no Virgo in his chart, needless to say. And I've got Virgo in my chart. So it's just funny looking at, just how keen of an eye, personally I have, and just in general too, like knowing Virgos, like their keen eye for detail is spectacular. I would say with that though, it's really important for Virgos to just keep in mind not to get lost in like the details and lose sight of the bigger picture, right? You can go down rabbit holes of something that you're like, does this actually matter? Do I actually need to be focusing and, on the details of this thing? Or like, can I just zoom out and like kind of let myself just let go of going down this rabbit hole of things? So just something to think about. It is a gift of yours, but is it taking you away from the bigger picture and what's actually important? Just something to keep in mind. So in a similar way as Gemini and Virgo, interestingly enough, Gemini's air, Virgo's earth, but both are ruled by the planet of Mercury, which again, not a super important detail for us to talk about in this, but I wanted to just highlight and spotlight the connection between these two signs because they're both ruled by the planet of Mercury, which is the planet of communication and thinking and how we process our thoughts, right? Virgo is very much a communicative, very intellectual, very big into writing as well. But it's different. It's a different vibe than Gemini. And so I wanted to speak to that because Virgo's mind in the way it writes and communicates is very analytical. It's all about, again, like kind of dissecting information, taking large amounts of information and like processing it and dissecting it. Virgos can be really great at technical writing. And it's so funny. Again, I'm going to draw a connection here because I was like, did technical writing in accounting. And it's so interesting just drawing on this, how technical you can get in your writing as a Virgo, because it's all about the details, right? You can, as a Gemini, you can tell a story like nobody's business and it is going to sound good and it is going to be engaging and it's going to be amazing. Well, Virgos can write a technical report, write a how-to report. And as you know, if you think about like a how-to report or like an SOP, it's like, okay, like every detail, every step is important. And the Virgos are going to make sure every step is there and nothing gets missed, right? So that's one of the ways that they're very analytical. They're very technical in their abilities to work with systems and writing and all sorts of things. think about even like an editor of a book. You want a Virgo to edit your book, right? Because they catch all the details. They notice where you've got any like mishaps or anything like that. They can be very, very good editors, very good in general at like inspecting things. And they're always improving. So that's where this like perfectionist, this detailed perfectionist comes in, because they are always improving upon what's not working. So, you know, the perfectionist in Virgo energy settles for really like nothing other than the absolute best for things. They have incredibly high standards. And these standards are so high that it actually kind of leads me to one of Virgo's biggest challenges or struggles, which is this tendency to be overly perfectionist or overly critical. Virgos can be so incredibly hard on themselves when they fall short of their own high expectations and standards that they've set for themselves. And also, they can be hard on others when others fall short of the expectations that they place on them or the standards that they place on others. And so it's really important, one, to just be mindful if you've got a lot of Virgo energy. Are you putting somebody else on a too high of a pedestal? Like, are you, creating really high standards for other people? Are you creating unreachable standards for yourself where you're never proud of yourself because you're never able to fulfill your own expectations of yourself, right? Like, it's really important for, I would say this: Virgos are here to improve upon things. They are here to have that amazing eye for detail. They are here to have that critical eye. But where are you directing this energy of the critical eye? Are you directing it on yourself? Or are you directing it on other people? I mean, for a purpose, if you're a coach out there and you're here to critique things and, critique I'm like throwing this out there, like critique the form of, you're a fitness coach and you're here to critique form and make sure that it's done properly so you don't get hurt. Like, that can be great, right? But like, and it's just important to make sure that you have a healthy outlet for all of this incredible, beautiful, detail-oriented, critical energy that you're here to have. So it's like, what's the purpose? How is that being used? Other than, on yourself, making sure you're not being too critical of yourself to where you're never proud of yourself, and same with like somebody else, right? So I think that the other thing that I want to speak to as well is just this overgiving energy, because Virgos are, that employee of the month energy. And so in a similar way as Cancer, is there a tendency that you're overgiving and that you're always doing and you're doing for everyone else and doing nothing for yourself? That's something also just to keep in mind and be mindful of, like, how you are managing your energy. Are you managing it in a healthy way, or are you constantly just like doing for everyone else? Virgos are so productive. Like I mentioned, they're always checking things off the list, getting things done. And that's because they have this very natural nervous energy. I know this very well. And I'm like, wow, no wonder I'm such a nervous individual. I've got Aquarian energy, very airy energy. So that's like airy energy, restless energy, lots of Gemini energy, and Virgo energy on top of that. And so I'm like, wow, like my body being this Virgo rising, I do have so much nervous energy in my body. And so because of this nervous energy, it a lot of times can drive all that restlessness. So yes, Virgos are so productive and that's so amazing. But at the core of that productivity, how much of that is being driven by this inner restlessness that doesn't want to sit still, that's feeling really nervous, that when you do sit still, it feels uncomfortable because, I don't want to sit still because this anxiety in my body like needs to be doing something. Well, why is there that anxiety in that body? Why is it so uncomfortable to sit still? And so one of the most important things that Virgos can do is really focus on finding ways to center themselves, to bring them into the present moment, to find this inner calm. It's beautiful to be productive. It's beautiful to spend your days doing all sorts of wonderful things for other people and being the top-notch employee, but are you comfortable being still? And if you're not, what practices can you find to support you and finding stillness within yourself, that inner calmness? Breathwork has been beautiful for me for that. And then just speaking to one of the ways that Virgos can really shine to really wrap up this is that your hospitality, your ability to serve, your ability to notice the small things and attune to the needs of others. Your ability to like be of service, to lend a helping hand, it's because you're able to see what other people's need in a very similar way as Cancer. There's so many similarities there, and just your ability to understand what are the needs of others. It just shows up a little bit differently than Cancer. but really just leaning into your unique way of being able to make other people feel so special and so cared about and so noticed. Like, because you notice the little things. And so you do the little things. It's like, again, the acts of service. It's like just the little things. So this is what I tell my husband. I'm like, it's not about doing big, grandiose things for me. Like, it's literally like maybe filling up my water for me. It's like something so tiny where I'm like, oh my God, you noticed that my water was empty and you went and filled it up. And that was like so sweet. It's like the tiniest little thing that you notice about the other person you were so good at. And so, however that looks for you, knowing that just your ability to serve, your ability to notice the little things, your ability to be so aware and attuned to the needs of others is truly such a gift of yours.
If I'm hiring an event planner, like, show me your chart. I want to make sure you've got some big Virgo energy, because that to me is super important in like the details and knowing this person's not going to miss a thing. And that is such a beautiful quality of Virgo. But it's like, I will also confess, Virgos make me sweat. You guys make me nervous. Like, I'm like, oh my God, like, you're gonna see every problem I've ever done. You know what I mean? And that just like really makes me nervous. As a Scorpio who doesn't like to be seen that deeply, but I love to see others deeply, a Virgo's gonna just call me right out. And I'm like, like, give me a paper bag. Like, I gotta breathe into this thing, because Virgos, like, do not miss a thing. And so, I also love the aspect of Virgos that like, is I think lesser talked about now, like in 21st century, like employee of the month vibe Virgo, that like Virgos are big witch energy, like really deeply connected, feeling healer vibes, like the original like goddess. I really do believe that about Virgos. And so whether you connect to the employee of the month, detail oriented perfectionist side, like really great at being hospitable, or you connect to that other side of Virgo that actually like, if there was a spell, like, okay, Virgos, the original grimoire keeper, right? Like, they're going to make sure they've got every spell, every story, everything documented, every herb, every picture, all of these things. Like, when we go back and we look at like, oh, what did like Blue Tansy look like in 1842? A Virgo definitely pressed that thing into a book. I guarantee it. Like, it was
100. 100.
Yeah. It was done correctly. Virgo's equivalent to the grimoire now, and the record keeper is the spreadsheet. And every Virgo I know, like, I know a Virgo who was planned a party, and like, this is a really funny story, and I doubt he'll ever listen to this, but we had this tracker that we use at work, okay? And it was like a super detailed tracker, and we use it over and over again on big projects, and we would just copy and paste, and we each had our own unique version. And of course, mine was like really bare bones because it was all up here, but every Virgo's was like super detailed, like they created this thing. And he used this tracker for a party, but he forgot to save it down off of the internet, and he had been updating like pick up liquor, pick up food, like on this tracker. And he calls me in a panic. He's like, oh my God, something's wrong with the tracker. And it was just so funny because like I was looking through this. He's like, yeah, if you ever need a party tracker. And I was like, this thing is incredible. This is insanely done. Like, he's like 4 p.m. like someone's gonna drop off ice. Like, I mean, every little detail. And I just think it's really cool. I think Virgos too, like I have a lot of Virgos in my life, or Virgo energy in my life. And it's so funny because I think that they come to me to like see that they won't die if things are not perfect. And I have a lot of clients who come with that Virgo energy as well. And I think that to break them out of the mold of perfectionism, like what's going to happen? What's going to happen? Because to me, I don't have that Virgo energy, and it doesn't hit me as hard, perfectionism. Like, oh wow, like if something goes wrong, we make a mistake, there's a typo. My personal podcast was spelled wrong for 9 months. I had no idea. It was spelled right like everywhere else, but like the title was Soul Bloom, right? And it was SOUBLLOOM. Like it was just So Bloom. Like it was not Soul Bloom. And my friend goes, is this on purpose? And I was like, no. And like she has the gate of correction, and I just thought that was hilarious because I was like, oops, like, oh well. And then I fixed it and it was fine. And like, but I just imagined that would be really hard on a Virgo. And I think that like, if you are, have that Virgo energy, or you resonate with that perfectionism, like really connect with somebody who, one, doesn't drive you insane about it, but like two, who can show you like, it's going to be okay. And it's not just okay for that person, it'll be okay for you too.
I feel like you gave me just a very interesting like aha. It's like you said something in a way that it really landed with me, because it's almost like my Virgo, the way it shows up, my need for perfection, right? And what I look for, it's funny because I can future trip where it's like, I don't want to mess up. I don't want to make a mistake. And so I plan, or I guess The nervousness is about the future and is about making a mistake or messing up or something not being perfect, like literally not being perfect. And I'm like, oh, if I like mess up, then it's the end of the world. And so you over prepare in the now, or you over plan, or you overdo things in the now to like prevent mistake in the future. It's like, so then again, too, it's like, how much are you doing in the now that's actually not important, that you're just doing to overcompensate for maybe a future mistake if it ends up happening?
Yeah, that's a really great point of just like, hey, does this, you said this earlier, you said, does this really matter? And as a Virgo, I think that's a huge question, but it can be your biggest strength of saying, this really matters, but also, does this really matter? Like going back to that event planning things, like someone like me might be like, oh, do we need a coat rack? Like it's going to be in like April, it might not be cold. And then all of a sudden, like the Virgo, it's like snowing. And the Virgo's like, got a coat rack, like no problem. Like it's already on deck, like just in case. And like I'm the person that the day of our wedding, it may have rained. It did rain. And we had to make the decision 2 days before whether we wanted to tent our ceremony. And my husband was like, no, we're not going to do it. And I was like, oh my God, what if we're standing in the rain? But like we just went without it. But I feel like the Virgo would have got the tent.
It's funny you say that, because I had an outdoor wedding and I remember that. And yeah, but I didn't get the tent. I was like, no, because I don't like the tent. It would look ugly.
Yeah, it's like I want to eat under the tent for dinner with the cute lights. But I mean, for the ceremony, the whole idea was to be married under the tree, like under the tent. I love that. We
Yeah.
both had that experience, except I was probably a little bit less stressed about it.
Yeah. Go with the flow.
I know, it's so funny. Well, as we promised, we had a lot of juicy insights for each of these signs. And, I think like as you navigate between this episode and the next one with the next 6 signs, think to yourself, okay, like what signs stand out most to you in your chart? After maybe hearing this or not, what sign resonates the least? We talked about this a little bit as kind of being a really good mirror for you to see like where in your life that could fit in. And can you see these traits in people close to you? Like, do you see the different aspects of this? Because I find that to be really interesting. And I learned so much through the other and observing, and also like hindsight being 2020. Then, as we've said a million times in this episode and those before, we're so much more than our sun signs. Remember to see how your moon and rising sign plays into your overall view of like how this is coming together in your overall chart and how you're experiencing all of the 12 signs in your day-to-day life. And we are going to have the second episode, so that's linked below. So if you want to dive right in and get started with Libra through Pisces, go for it. We're excited, but we can't wait to continue to dive deeper into these topics with you in all of our future episodes and bring you this fun and thought-provoking, enlightening conversations as your fellow astrology girls. Thank you so much for being here with us today. If you love this episode, we'd absolutely love it if you would share it with another astrology loving friend who'd love this podcast as much as you do. Or even if you just want to do the hot goss and be like, hey, listen, like go listen to Cancer. That's so you. You're such a feeler. I love you. And don't forget to tag us on socials at Those Astrology Girls so we can share your posts. It means the world to us to get this podcast out there and to share it with other fellow astrology lovers. Okay, until next time, see you next week.